Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today we're talking about Forza Horizon 6, and this is an initial look. And while I haven't played overly far, like to the end of the game, I have played a good amount. But first, this story, it's like, well, it's another Forza festival. And I feel like we've kind of done this a few times, and there's not really a lot of changes there necessarily from the last couple of experiences that we've had. And that's going to play into some stuff I'm going to talk about later with some of the tabs that I have open. The onboarding experience of starting the game is actually really fun. You get to see different vehicles, different tracks, different environments, get to see how the cars handle and stuff. And I think, too, they're trying to portray like what the physics, the overhaul that they did in the game, which we're going to get to. And yes, it is really, really fun. They did a good job, and they've put a lot of work into that. So far, I roughly have about 12 hours of gameplay. I've played up to S1 vehicles, just a couple of them, and I've gotten a green wristband and working toward the next one, which I believe is blue. So we're going to go over the good and the bad in the game, and then kind of how I think Forza Horizon is actually in trouble toward the end. We're also going to go over the scores as well across multiple fronts. But there is a trend that is very interesting with that. I'll share that toward the end. And then, yeah, just final impressions. So far, I roughly have about 12 hours of gameplay. But yeah, the good is definitely the car physics. It is definitely upgraded. Also, upgrades have more of an influence that you can actually feel while you're driving. I think especially the tires. So yeah, the right tire for the right track really does matter. I think it matters more. Also, too, the suspension I think also really matters, especially if you're doing drift tracks or maybe rally or something. You really want that drift suspension because you can angle so much more with your wheels while you're turning. And yeah, that's a huge deal. Something I wanted to go over was the changes between Forza 5 and 6. Just kind of a rundown. And yeah, of course, like the biggest thing is like the map. But like the Horizon 6 map is definitely a lot bigger. There's definitely like different mountains and neon lit city streets, and they actually have the biggest city, I guess, to date of any Forza game, which is cool, and that really is kind of a nice experience. The graphics themselves, well, they have finer detail with like cherry blossoms that move realistically when cars speed past and lighting changes that make every season actually feel unique. And yeah, there are kind of different color palettes depending on where you are, kind of the season that you're in. And that also changes the tracks too a little bit, which is nice. There's also audio improvement through Triton acoustics. Driving through like tunnels or crowded city streets also sound more realistic than before. And they do sound pretty good. I can't necessarily say if they sound better, but they definitely do sound very good for Forza Horizon 6. One thing I would say, though, is that the city itself feels kind of empty, kind of like pieced together. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, but like there's no pedestrians on the streets, there's no bicyclists, there's nothing like that. And two, the cars are generally speaking, um, I don't know, fairly generic on the road, and the NPCs of those vehicles also are not overly intelligent. Or they make illegal turns, or they just completely disappear or reappear. It's just kind of sporadic all over the place, so that's not a great thing. And there's also areas where citizens are walking around on the streets, but again, you can't access those to create some mishap accidents. In the previous ones or other games, we've had them to where the citizens kind of like jump out of the way, right? And you kind of get to engage with that, which is kind of fun. It makes it feel a little more grounded. But in number 6, we don't actually have that. Also, in 5, many players felt like similar tuning setups worked too well across every single car. So 6 aims to balance the vehicle classes better and create more unique handling styles. And I do think, again, you feel that. And yeah, there's kind of like with the upgrades, there's more influence kind of per upgrade towards certain characteristics of each car. And then some upgrades are really good for certain classes of car. There's also a new class that we have called the R class for racing, which is a category for track-focused cars, which I think is wonderful because we know that most of us anyway, know that motorsport doesn't exist anymore. They're not going to make any more. Number 7 was the last one, which bummed out some people, but I'm glad that they're actually kind of like now combining with a new class of car to kind of like have that there for those that are interested in that type of feature. New social features. Well, there's actually car meets, which is kind of cool. You can also show off your ride, cruisers friends, and jump into races without loading screens, which is very nice. And then we also have new Horizon Rush event mode that adds obstacle-based races with jumps, moving hazards, and fast-paced challenges. So once you've kind of like gone through the campaign, there's still some other things for you to do, which is pretty cool. Customization is bigger, which yes, that's true, but most of it is pretty much the same except for a couple of things. You have more body kits, which is nice, which you should because you're in Japan. I mean, they are like the king of drifting over there, and you should have that, so that's nice to see. Also, the new estate feature lets players build garages, showrooms, and even racetracks on personal land. And this is actually really cool because you can buy multiple of these around. You can invite your friends to your game, and you can actually drive around and have a good time and actually play and kind of look at some of this stuff, which is really cool. So there's kind of a personal thing there. And again, that's not going to be for everybody, but that's actually kind of nice that that's there for those that wish it. There is also a new Discover Japan mode, which encourages casual exploration instead of just nonstop racing. And again, this isn't necessarily going to be everybody, but I think the general audience is kind of more excited about casualization in video games. We've been seeing that for quite some time across almost every kind of like genre that's out there. So to see that too in Horizon, I think is also good. But the issue that I have with kind of Discover Japan mode is that while it is cool, while it is nice, and the visuals too are generally amazing, we kind of have this tokenization thing going on, and I'm going to talk about that in kind of the bad. Also, there's a character creator, which is nice, which allows many options, but I also feel like a lot of the options are kind of not necessarily necessary. They're more trying to be inclusive than actually trying to kind of like cater to the experience of the general player. But I mean, those options are there. We have prosthetics or robotic arms, which of course wouldn't work with racing anyway. We also have hearing aids. There's also body type 1, 2, and 3, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then, yeah, the smiles, dude. The lips on most of the characters just look kind of weird. Let's have a look. This is just a really quick one, but I had to talk about this. This needs to be in my review. But yeah, the lips on everybody is like definitely off, and I don't know exactly what's going on. Like some people look normal, but my word, the choices that we have are just are just weird. But yeah, just think it's hilarious. I just can't get over this. Yeah, the lips and some of the bone structure and like some of the foreheads are super prominent. And it just looks kind of weird. I mean, look at this lady, dude. Man, she's got lips across her whole face. And yeah, there's multiple like that, multiple dudes too. Anyway, I'm not sure what's going on. But yeah, it just doesn't look right. We have body types, boo. I don't even know what that means. Body type 3, what the heck is that? I have no idea. It's men and women, guys. That's what it is. Actually, it doesn't even change anything. Are we being serious? Like pretty much nothing changes. Body type 2 and 3 are exactly the same. And then 1 and 2 change a little bit in the arms and the neck. That's pretty much it. And the jawline. No, I think even the jawline's the same. Anyway, I'm a dude. I'm going to be a dude. We have prosthetics, which you had to be inclusive. I guess that's cool. Because, yeah, some people do definitely have that. But unless it is hooked up to you, which would be way more expensive than a prosthetic, you're not going to be able to use it to drive. We're including hearing aids. Okay. The hearing aid guy, the icon, I guess. So while I think the character creator is good, I think kind of we have a lot of these different options, which really is kind of difficult to make a unique character, even though you have different shades or hats or things you can wear or accessories or clothing. We still kind of have like these very 2D characters that we can play. We don't have a voice. There's no character voice for that, or we can't select a voice either, which is kind of weird, which we had in older games. Maybe not necessarily Horizon, but other ones. But yeah, that's kind of like a few little teeny details, like pedestrian on the streets, and also like actual voices for your character Those things are just kind of missing. That's just kind of the norm now, which I think is funny or ironic. And then we have the ultimate character creator with all of these different options, which most people aren't even going to care about. So I feel like the wrong things are kind of being focused on, while we're focusing on some upgrades and customization for things for a few rather than the general audience. And that's generally going to make kind of a 2D thing, which is also going to make trouble for the story. Because yeah, the NPCs also in the game that we meet where they're very 2D, and it really changes the environment and kind of the vibe of things. And yeah, I'll show that here with on YouTube. So again, this game was made back in, I believe, 2012 or 2014. It's been running for a very long time, but you can clearly tell who like the characters are, where they come from, kind of the life of racing. And again, Fast and Furious really did a great job on this and kind of made this a mainstay for over a decade with the movies. And they've made a ton of them now. They've made like 9 or 10 of them now, I think. They've made a lot of them, but like the aesthetic here that you see, kind of the who the characters and who the players are, and you can just see like everyone is themselves. They all have an identity, right? They're not necessarily 2D. And even some of the characters, like everything is played into with kind of the life and style of these things, which is great. And it makes the game exciting. We kind of know what we're expecting, and a lot of people can connect with this, which is kind of what we want to see when we're playing a game. Now, with Forza Horizon 6, what we see is like things are kind of, you're starting out, you're getting to meet different folks and whatever, but things are kind of bland. The most colorful things are actually the cars. The camera angles are kind of weird. The NPC characters are also very 2D because we're trying to be inclusive. We're not trying to like step on any toes or whatever. And all of this is kind of an underlying design change. So it's very hard to, with 2D characters, to feel connected, to feel like I'm supposed to care about any of these people. And that kind of sucks. And so, yeah, it doesn't come off the same. And there isn't that kind of emotional connection that maybe some of us had when we were growing up with other series like Drive Club or with Need for Speed or even some of the older Horizon games. So overall, the gameplay and the music does work very, very good in the game. The environments are wonderful. They're very nice. Seeing the different seasons and stuff is great. And then the cars and everything, it all fits very well together, and it's all very fun. I think they do a wonderful job with that. Also, creator designs for estates and cars and tuning, that's all there and present too. And the auction house is actually quite fun, and you get to see some of those more unique vehicles, which is great in the auction house. And yeah, they can get pretty competitive right there in the last couple of minutes. It's kind of insane. So yeah, the gameplay itself is very good for the game. But let's talk about the bad. The story doesn't sell itself very well. Again, it's very optic and not very haptic. Again, we saw in the YouTube video that you kind of get to feel that with like Horizon 1 cutscene, and with Horizon 6, it's just very flat, very toned down, calm, very generic, and there's just not a lot there. And yeah, again, the character, with my own, I don't even have a voice. There's also no real risk, or there's less of it, unless there's simulation with like car parts. Also, the destruction, I feel like is pretty awful compared to what we've had in previous games, not just Horizon, but others as well. So there's really no risk. Then there's areas too that are again completely blocked so that nothing bad happens. And the whole story so far just really feels flat. And the visuals are really the only thing that sells me on the game. Also, the tokenizing of Japan. I feel like the game design is about me as a tourist instead of experiencing Japan as a driver or as a racer. And that kind of feels off. And again, it's okay to kind of have a list of these things to go check, whether it's stamps, whether it's mascots, whether it's getting bands or other kind of stickers to put on my car or windows or whatever. All of that is fine and good, but there's so much of that. The game kind of feels more grindy than actually meaningful, and that I think is an issue in the game. With games like Need for Speed Heat, I didn't necessarily feel like a tourist. I actually felt like I was a part of something, a part of that environment. It was also very easy to see other players on the map, but when you have an environment where you can't necessarily see players, I can see them if I drive by them, but when I open up the map, they don't actually show up. So I never know really how many are on the map. I don't know where others are. I don't know necessarily who they are, and why they quit doing that, I really have no idea. But when I look at the map, it makes it kind of feel more lifeless. And two, while there are some things to be social, I feel like there needs to be a better incentive to actually be social in the game if people want to, or if they're kind of on the fence. Because if I'm just kind of casually playing, I never really interact with anybody. Everyone else is in their own little bubble, and that kind of interaction disappears. And we had maybe a little bit of that in Forza 5, but definitely in Forza 4, there was a lot of actual interaction with players, a lot of races, a lot of challenges and rivals, and that was all actually really cool. But in 6, I don't even really feel that. And apparently, this is the game that's actually sold the most, especially on Steam compared to anywhere else. And it's just not tracking very well. The game, too, which I think is another bad thing, hands out money in cars like they're candy. So even spending $300,000 on a car with some upgrades and parts and stuff for another $50,000 or $100,000, I don't really feel like that's actually very difficult to get in the game. I've basically, again, played for uh, 12 hours and I've earned, I think, a couple million by now. Again, I'm just making money very, very quickly. And there's also tokens that you can use on specific cars. But again, some of the perks that you can add for your specific vehicle, not all of them are permanent. And also the tokens, well, you can get some of those. They call these mastery tokens. But again, I think they're kind of just worthless overall because, again, it's all about getting more experience and stuff for your actual vehicle than actually really helping your vehicle. So I don't entirely understand the point there because it's not actually a utility for your car. It's more of a utility for me for the play. Excuse me, utility for me for the player. And I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, oh yay, I earned more credits basically. I earned more experience, but that really, every game does that. That's not really special. Also, another thing I got to complain about is while you can tune at the beginning of a race, you can't actually upgrade your car. So maybe I need a specific car or whatever. So yeah, I have to make sure I have that type of car or vehicle that can actually do the race. But if all I really need to do is swap out the tires, well, unfortunately, I have to go back to basically the Forza garage, buy the tire or swap it out if I already own it. That happens more often than I want to say. And that's not really a great onboarding experience because I know once I start sitting there and I maybe just need to swap out some parts or maybe switch out some upgrades. Again, it allows me to tune, but it doesn't allow me to change out upgrades. I have to fast travel back, have a loading screen, swap out my parts, go through some menus, and then work on actually setting the destination and driving back. And doing that over and over again is not a great experience. I feel like it's really just a waste of my time. If we can actually take time to tune the vehicle, then we should be able to swap out also some of those parts. That would honestly make a lot more sense, especially when we're solo, because nobody's going to be waiting on us. It's just the game waiting on us. And the game honestly can wait as long as they want, as long as it wants while we're doing what we're doing. But yeah, that doesn't feel very good, and it burns honestly a lot of time. One worry that I have ultimately with a bad thing for Forza as a series itself is that we already know that Motorsports was kind of dying out. It wasn't selling enough in sales. It was costing too much ultimately, and they kind of weren't making that money back. So we've gone with Horizon. Well, Horizon now has another problem where it's kind of just becoming like another game in the series. And I imagine it will kind of feel this way by the time we have Forza Horizon 7 or 8. Let me explain. When we take a look at SteamDB, we're looking at an 82, which is very good, 55,000 reviews, and also a ton of players actually playing the game. This is the most that I've ever actually played and been recorded on Steam for a Horizon game. So congratulations to them. When we take a look at Horizon 5, it's actually rated higher, quite a lot more reviews, and there's still some people that actually play it, but the thing that's interesting is not as many people actually played for an all-time peak. But there's still quite a few players, 15,000 roughly concurrent every single day actually hitting that peak, and which is very good. And during the weekend, we're almost kind of sitting around 18 to 20,000 players. So that's a lot of players that are still actually coming online for 5. But again, the rating was higher, which is interesting. When we take a look at 4, it's even higher still at almost a 90, which is insane. And again, we take a look at the charts, the concurrence, again, we're actually less than number 5, but the ratings were actually higher. And there's still people that come back, especially on the weekend, almost hitting 10,000 players, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, that's kind of wild that even though 4 is actually pretty old, Well, this is when we actually got the delisting and festival playlist post, and a ton of players actually came back, actually making the all-time peak for the game, which again is kind of insane. But yeah, it's kind of weird that on Steam, the score actually keeps going down according to the players, but we have more players than ever. We take a look at Xbox, it's kind of the same thing. We're roughly at a 4.1 right now. This was at a 4.2 or 4.3, but yeah, it is slowly kind of going down. We take a look at Forza Horizon 5. This is actually lower. This is a 3.6. And then we took a number 4. It's basically 4.9 out of 5. It's still the most liked ever so far out of the Horizon 4 video games. And at least as far back as we can go. When we take a look at when we take a look at Metacritic, it's kind of the same story. We have a 91 for the critics and 8.7 for the players. Forza Horizon 5, we have a 92 and an 8.2, lower for players, but also we almost had 6,000 reviews, which is crazy. Right now we don't even have quite 500. But yeah, this one actually did get a lower for players, but was a little higher for critics. And then when we take a look at number 4, we had again a 92 for critics and an 8.3 for users. But we had 2,700 ratings. So far for number 6, well, this was an 88.8. So again, it is slowly going down. We'll have to see how it settles out, but I imagine that after a while it will actually be lower than these two games over time, which again is kind of unique. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. They've done very, very well according to Alina Analytics. So let's actually go through this, but there's still something too that doesn't quite add up. Right now it's an estimate of 2.1 million copies on Steam and Xbox has 2.1 million copies sold. Steam has 2.8 million copies sold. And then 3 million more players that checked it out on Game Pass Ultimate, but we have a total of only 6 million players overall. Guys, we should have closer to like 8 million players. So something doesn't quite add up there. But again, they've definitely made some good revenue. They maybe haven't paid their game back yet, or maybe kind of broken even on the budget, but they're still marketing and all of this other stuff. So we'll have to see. And then still there's the release actually on PlayStation, which still sell hundreds or maybe a couple million copies max there too. So it's not doing bad for itself. We know too that roughly out of the 2 million that bought it on Steam, well, roughly over 1 million actually bought the $120 version, which is nuts. That is so many players and so much money actually made from that. So again, I think it's great, but yeah, 120 is pretty high. But if you buy the premium upgrade by itself, it's $60, which, guys, that's way too high, because the base game is 70, and then the DLC package basically for the premium edition, which not all of it is really that important anyway, is $60. And so we're looking at a $140 game, which is $130 game, which is really expensive. That's getting up there. So again, it's successful, it's doing very well, but the thing that I'm still leery about is Forza Horizon just becoming another Forza Horizon game? Because while they can make some adjustments, while they can do some improvements or even some additions like including the estate or being able to build your own tracks to share with friends, or even some of the new game modes to kind of tour Japan or being able to do car meets, all of those are cool, but those kind of sound more like an actual update to a game instead of a brand new game. The biggest thing for Forza Horizon 6 is actually the Japan map, with it also being bigger, which is nice. There's more content in there, but the content doesn't necessarily see all that meaningful, and it just kind of, again, feels more of the same. So I feel like Horizon needs to get their act together. They need to really come up with something new and unique that makes it feel like a new Horizon game, instead of, again, just kind of making another Horizon game. Because even though these are years apart, well, they have to do something, because why are we getting lower scores every time on Steam? There's basically the next iteration of the game. I think that's definitely a problem. So anyway, that's my current review. My own score is probably a high 70s right now. It is very good. I think it's great. I think the story pretty much sucks. I think the characters are very two-dimensional, so that side of the game doesn't sell it very well. But then again, the physics changes that they've added to the game, the map itself, the all of the physics and body kits and all of that stuff with how your car actually responds to the road and also different environments is all very, very good. It's just marred a little bit by kind of the uh, casualness, a little bit, the grindiness of the game, and then to the flat story and characters. So I don't know, but I think ultimately they'll have to do something to 7 or 8, and we'll see what happens. So with that, folks, thanks for tuning in. You can always follow me over at GameGarbage22. If you sub to any channel, make sure you also click the bell for notifications. Otherwise, YouTube does not like to send future videos out to those channels. Also, too, if you wish, you can follow me over at Twitch when I do stream, which is not very often. I haven't been able to do that very much, but I also need to actually get some B-roll as well for various games. So, yeah, I'll be on every once in a while when I'm not actually doing things like this. So with that, folks, see you guys on the next one.